If you are a medical professional and your employer is not putting money in your 401k or 403b in the form of a match, should you still use the account? Super common question. We're going to dive into the answer today with some numbers showing you why. Now, I'm Kristen Burton, the founder of Strive Coaching, and I became a millionaire at 31 as a PA, predominantly through investing in the stock bond market with some real estate as well. So this is one of my favorite topics, and I cannot wait to show you how a 401k can be a valid investment tool with or without a match. The key thing to recognize first is to know that an account itself, a 401k, a Roth IRA, is not an investment. What is an investment is the holding you have inside of it, the index fund, the ETF that you bought. So the core question is, does a 401k provide me tax benefits that exceed any cons that the account might have? If you're making traditional 401k contributions, you're getting a tax deduction now, meaning in the year that you make the contribution, you're paying less money in tax. You're going to get tax deferred growth, and then when you're in retirement, the money is taxed when you withdraw it. That's fundamentally how it works. So let's look at some math behind what happens if you invest traditional 401k contributions, taking advantage of that tax savings now, or invest after-tax dollars in a taxable brokerage account. In this example scenario, you're investing $20,000 per year, which if you earn 100K, that would be 20% of gross, which would be very reasonable if you want a standard retirement at 65 or 67. A 30-year time horizon, meaning you're kicking this off at 35 with $0 invested, 8% before tax returns, and a 25% marginal tax bracket. Now, in the light blue, you see the account balance. On the left-hand side, this is the account balance represented in your taxable brokerage account, had you put all the money there. This is the balance in the tax-deferred account, meaning that 401k or 403b with traditional contributions. Of course, the ending balance will be larger because there is a tax burden or a tax drag that exists inside a taxable brokerage account as it grows. That doesn't exist in a tax-deferred account. Now, in the dark blue, you can see the after-tax balance because, of course, all of this money in the tax-deferred account will be taxed at ordinary income tax brackets when it is removed from the account in retirement. But you can see that in this example, the after-tax balance of the 401k actually supersedes the balance of the taxable brokerage account because of the benefit of all of those years of tax-deferred growth. So you can see the math favors using a 401k even if you don't have an employer match. Now, of course, there's cons to the account. 401ks tend to have administrative fees in the background that you have literally no control over. And the funds that you have available to you may be limited. The funds available may have high expense ratios or have high internal operating expenses that you don't necessarily want to pay for. More likely, in this day and age, you'll be able to find some low-cost index fund or ETF that you can use to design a low-cost portfolio inside a 401k, which helps mitigate some of that long-standing pattern of 401ks being expensive. Now, the main downside to a 401k, particularly if you're making traditional contributions, is you're hedging on the fact that your tax bracket will be lower in retirement. Now, while you might have an idea of what your income will be in retirement, and it may be lower than your income is now, you don't know what all tax brackets will be in the future. That's the big wild card when pursuing this type of investing. Don't forget an extra pearl. If you're doing public service loan forgiveness, using a 401k, even in the absence of a match, will lower your AGI, lower your student loan payment, and maximize your amount of student loan debt that's forgiven tax-free. Not a small point for those doing PSLF for student loans. All in, 401ks and 403bs are a very viable investment tool for medical professionals and likely will represent a very small piece of your wealth building puzzle. You should be using multiple tax advantage accounts to invest and after tax accounts in order to create the big picture strategy that will ultimately build you the most wealth in the long term. The worst thing you can do is wait. And if that's something that you've been doing, watch my next video on how to lose well over $1 million just by doing that.